The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Speaking podcast coming to you on October 8th, 2020. How you guys doing? Oh boy, another podcast this week. You know, glad to be here, of course. Yesterday, first off, well, I'll get to all that in a second. First off, this podcast you can find on an Apple. I was going to say iTunes. iTunes no longer exists. It's now Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, and now we are now on Amazon Music. Yes, I said that. We're all over the place. Earnestly Speaking Podcasts, Earnestly Speaking Media, all over the place. Also, if you like pro wrestling as well, too, you can check out my wrestling podcast I do with my friends Mike Bernier and Joe Lopez. We do the Take 3 Wrestling Podcast, which we typically record every late Sunday night. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, we do talk wrestling on this podcast as well, but that podcast also, if you want more comprehensive pro wrestling and talk. Anyway, hold on 1 second. All right. Anyway, it's now 6 days away, as is recording, before the election of 2020 between Donald John Trump and Joe Biden. What's Joe Biden's middle name again? I forgot. Anyway, I voted yesterday. Voted early. This is only the second time I voted early in my life in 6 presidential elections. And it's funny. Whenever I vote early, for example, there's always a line. Every time I vote, and even in midterms, not just presidential general elections, even in midterms, when I vote on the day of the election, it only takes me literally 10 to 15 minutes to get in and out. The only time I've ever voted early was 2012. That was Mitt Romney and Barack Obama's re-election bid. And then this year, I went yesterday. Was out for about an hour. It was a little hot outside, obviously. My wife and I were burning up a little bit, but it was cool. Because like I said, I did order a mail-in ballot, but I never got it, actually. And the only reason I ordered a mail-in ballot back in like July, August was because I was worried that we weren't sure how COVID would be, how the era of COVID would be by the time we get down to election day. So I want to make sure I was able to vote. So in the event that they were making it only where you could mail in or drop it in a box, I want to have my I's dotted and my T's crossed. So I decided, hey, it's a good idea. Just go get a mail-in ballot and, mail in. But the reality for me, because I'm a political nerd, I'm a dork. You can say I'm a dork. I'm a fucking dork. The reality is I really love going to a ballot box. I love going in line, not a long line, obviously, but I like being in line just to be there and to soak in, Americana. I love being able to impact democracy and all that. I'm a dork in that way, whatever. You can judge me all you want. But I love being at the voting booth. I like being there with other citizens and different races and creeds and, political persuasions, of course. And I like being there just to talk it up a little bit, too. And, I had a good time yesterday. I was only for an hour, but, it was really, really cool. I made my selections, of course. I was a little surprised, too, especially because I've been saying, through this entire campaign election cycle that obviously Donald Trump has the more enthusiastic supporters. There is enthusiasm on the other side, but it's more so not necessarily for Joe Biden, but it's more so for anti-Trump. But I was surprised, though, at the polls. There's a lot of Joe Biden support flags and people out there, Democrats. I saw our state senator who's up for election, Lori Berman. I met her. She gave me a granola bar, actually, and a water. She was very, very nice, very sweet. But there's a lot of. I mean, obviously Trump had his supporters too, and by the way, for the record, very nice people too. The people I met there who were Trump supporters are very nice people. And they were there doing their thing. They had a little tent set up somewhere, on the other side of the library. But there's a lot of Biden support there too. I was surprised. That's why I keep saying that. Like, Trump supporters keep saying that, the silent majority, they're the silent majority, and I say, no, you're not, because you're the loudest ones in the whole room. You can't have boat parades every fucking 2 weeks and campaign rallies and rallies across and little, stand-ins and say you're the silent majority. You're the loudest ones in the block. The silent majority really is the Biden supporters, because they're not really necessarily going out there campaigning for Joe Biden. They're voting, and right now early voting numbers are through the freaking roof. And right now, you have to assume most of those are Democratic votes, just based on the voting behavior of both parties. That doesn't mean Joe Biden's going to win the election, but it's definitely a better sign for Democrats this time around as opposed to 4 years ago. More than half of the people who early voted by the end of this week is more than almost the entire amount of people that voted in 2016. So clearly this is a different election. 4 years ago, the total amount of people that voted was 130 million, around average. This year, they're expected to be about 150 million, maybe 160 million people that voted by the time it's all said and done, which typically favors Democrats. But, it was good to be there, vote early, like I said. Met some people there, it was really cool. Had a good time there. And yeah, it took about an hour in and out. Not in and out, but it took me an hour. My wife and I were there. It's a rough day too, because that same morning, we had to put our cat down. It was weird because the night before was Monday. We were watching TV, my wife and I, late at night after the kids were asleep. And the last 2 days, my cat had been like foaming at the mouth. And then, whatever, it is what it was. We didn't know what we thought it was her being thirsty, whatever. I mean, we didn't know what it was. We just didn't pay more attention to it. And she did it again on Monday when we were hanging out. Then she went into some convulsion and started seizuring off our couch. She was on the arm of the couch, started seizuring, fell off the couch. Then that was freaked both of us out. Obviously, my wife got freaked out. So we just, we nursed her a little bit. She was a little better. Next 2 hours, we just kept an eye on her. Then we go upstairs to our room to go to sleep, and we're about to put her to bed. Kind of get her settled down. All of a sudden, there she goes again, seizuring. Nearly falls off the bed this time. Holds on by one claw. We save her, so she won't hurt herself anymore. Brought her out to bed and nursed her again. So we decided, hey, we got to call the vet. By the way, we called the vet the first time, and they said keep an eye on it. Then she seizured again the second time in the bed about 1:30 in the morning. So we decided to call the emergency vet, and we decided to take her in. My wife calls because I couldn't leave the house because the kids go with her, so I had to stay home with the kids because they both were asleep, obviously. So we decided to call my mother-in-law, or my wife's mom, and she came up. Luckily, she was awake still. She came over and she went to the animal vet next to our house, about like five minutes away from us, maybe even 10 minutes. And they tried to see what they can do, and they were checking her and all that. And then while they were checking her, she had another seizure. I wasn't there, obviously, but they would tell me the story. Had another seizure. And, she's 13 years old, the cat. Trixie's her name, by the way. And I told my wife, she asked me, because she always leans on me for a lot of these big decisions, obviously, which is great. I guess a man else would know. No, not really, but you know what I mean. She always leans on, we are a very democratic household. I lean on her for decisions and vice versa. And she asked me what she should do. And I told her, honestly, if she's having seizures, she's had 5, actually, come to find out, she had an extra 2 seizures before that, too. So she's had 5 seizures in the span of 2 days. And I told her, well, here's the deal. She's 13 years old. Okay, she's 13 years old. And she won't get any better. She's getting older, obviously. I would put her down. Because the only thing worse than dying, in my opinion, is suffering before dying. Yeah, and plus you want to catch the cat here like dead on the floor while you're out of the house, or having to worry about her seizuring in front of you again, like she did. And again, my wife freaked the hell out when it happened. So we decided. I told her, listen, I think the best thing to do, the smart move here, is to put her down. Make sure she's not in no pain. She's 13 years old. She's lived a good life. We had her for 11 years. She's been her and I. I'll be honest, her and I, the cat and I, we've had some up and down relationship here because she used to not like me, and then at some point, we used to have another cat too that we lost also back in 2012, I think it was, Lillian, and we had 2 cats in the house. They hated each other, and then when she passed away, Trixie started to go over to me a little bit after, and I ended up loving her. I ended up loving her a lot. I was never a cat person ever. I was always a dog guy. Now as I get older and I have kids and I want less responsibility and whatnot, I embrace cats more because cats, all they need to do, as long as you have food and water and they have a place to piss in, aka the litter box, you're good. So she was good. She was a really, really good cat. Definitely miss her. You could definitely feel her presence not in the house. Like, I mean, obviously, if you're not a pet owner, maybe you don't understand as much. But if you're a pet owner and these cats and dogs mean a lot to you, again, and plus we owned her before we had kids, so losing our pets, who are our kids, before we even had kids, it hurts. And my wife, she took it hard. She's always taking the deaths of her pets hard, but I think this one was probably the one that really got her, in my opinion, the most, because we had her as long as we had, and being support. My wife loves cats, and she was so domesticated in our house. She was part of our family, and you can, even though she's just there while you're living your life, you just know she's there. And now that she's not there, you can tell the little things. Like when I get up in the morning and I see her, strolling, next to me or whatever. Or I'm here recording the podcast, for example. She actually would sometimes be in this room in my office with me while I'm recording. She's not here anymore. Or I'm downstairs watching the football and she's hanging out next to us, and that kind of thing. So she's definitely missed, man. But yeah, just the whole thing was so fast because it was like all that happened in the span of 4 hours. 11 p.m. she gets her seizure, and then 4 hours later, 3 a.m. we're putting her down. That was wacky. And then hours later, we're voting for the next president of the United States and other amendments and all that. So that was a wacky morning. We didn't sleep much that night. She got back home. My wife got back home about 3:30, 4 in the morning, and I stayed awake as long as I could to just support her. Thank God we both were off of work that same day. But she went. I slept about a couple hours, like 2-3 hours to max, and I'm somebody who needs at least 6 hours sleep. I can't survive on less than that. I need my rest. But we voted, like I said, the cat situation and then voting and all that, and we took we got her cremated and all that, and a couple $100 for that, of course, but yeah, she's missed, man. That sucks. I miss her already. But But by the way, guys, if you haven't voted, please do. What I will say though about voting, if you're going to vote and you have a mail-in ballot you have not turned in yet, my advice to you is don't mail it back. Just take the ballot, go to a ballot box, or wait in line and put it in the ballot box, because it's you're going to risk your votes not being counted by election day, especially if the mail is backed up. Okay, just saying, you want this only vote to count, and for the record, you have ample time. We've had early voting for the last 2 weeks now. We've had mailing voting available. There's no excuse to not have your voice be heard. There's ballot boxes available. If you want to be part of the process, if you want to have your guy win the election and your amendments you voted for to count, you got to step in and do your part. Be accountable. I'm big on personal accountability. You got to do it. So, yep, 6 days to the election. And tomorrow's podcast, hopefully we do this. Like I announced in the last episode, my dad, who came on 4 years ago, the day before the election, we're going to do it again this week. him and my brother Eric are going to come on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about the election and how we feel about it, and then maybe some basketball talk. I don't know. Probably Monday before, the day before the election, I'm thinking about doing my own prediction thing and breaking it down, the map maybe. I was thinking about doing like electoral map thing. I'm a fucking dork, dude. I love this stuff. You know, I kept telling people, you know, because there's a lot of people who don't, okay, obviously there's a lot of Trump supporters who I'm friends with and vice versa. And a lot of the Biden supporters are very nervous about Tuesday, and they ask my opinion about things. I'm like, well, you want my opinion? You got to look at a couple of things here in the election night, because I look at these things a little more broadly because I actually follow this stuff. I actually follow trends, and I actually, as I mentioned in the last episode, I actually went back and watched old election night footage on YouTube from 1996 and 2008 and 12 and 16 and 04 and all that, you know. And you look at the trends of where states are going, where they voted 4 years ago, where they voted 8 years ago, and how it looks now, and the demographics and all that stuff. You know, you look at this year's election and what states, according to the polling, are in play, for example. A couple things here I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to say this again probably next week if I do the election, you know, preview podcast. Couple things looking at. I'm looking at two things right now. This list might get longer as the time goes on. Two things to look at. Georgia. Supposedly Georgia's in play. It's a toss-up, supposedly. Supposedly Biden's leaning by a point in Georgia. Now, Georgia historically, especially the last 4, 5, 6 cycles, 8 cycles. Well, first off, let's put it this way. Georgia has not gone blue since 1992 when Bill Clinton won over George Bush, number 1, and Ross Perot. And by the way, he barely won Georgia. Okay? So, that's a big deal. The fact that Georgia's in play for Joe Biden is a big deal. If they don't call Georgia early, because typically Georgia, especially in the last 20 years, Georgia is called pretty quickly. Georgia's called within the first hour. If Georgia is still counting votes by 8 o'clock, maybe into 9 o'clock, those polls are true, and then there's deterioration around Trump, and that means that state's in play. It's a toss-up, and Biden might actually win it. Even if he doesn't win it, it represents the fact that if that state is closed, then every other state's closed too. That state, I mean, I'm talking about states that Trump should be leading by more than 5 points. So look at Georgia, number 1. The second thing you're looking forward to also with this is how many electoral votes will there be between the two candidates by 10 o'clock? You have the 7 o'clock polling closed, the 8 o'clock polling closed, the 9 o'clock polling closed, and they have 10 o'clock every hour, starting at 7. If by 10 o'clock Joe Biden has anywhere between 210 and 225 electoral votes, this election is over. Because 11 o'clock comes California, 55 electoral votes. Here comes Oregon. I believe it's 7 or 9 votes, whatever. And here comes Washington State. They're all going to go blue. So the biggest clue to see where you're at, because I don't think Donald Trump's winning by a wide margin. Even if he wins the election, he is not winning by a wide margin. By a wide margin, rather. Blah. And Trump supporters say, "Oh, what the hell? We do Trump landslide." First off, no Republican has won by a wide margin in an election in over 30 years. The last Republican president to do that was George H.W. Bush in 1988. Okay, when George Bush won in 2000, he won by by the Florida by 539 votes. Obviously, the Florida, the recount. You know how that played out. And in 2004, he won, but he won by a slim margin against John Kerry. And of course, Donald Trump didn't even win the popular vote in 2016. So let's not make things up because we want our guy to win. Let's use actual factual data, which is what I'm doing. And in my opinion, Donald Trump has not expanded his electoral base, his electorate. He's catered, in my opinion, to the 30%. The 30% is very strong and supportive and loyal, but there's still, the 30 to 35% Democrats, and then you have the middle moderates like me, for example, and the other 30%, So he's not going to win by a wide margin if he wins the election. You know what I'm saying? But we'll see what happens. Obviously, because polls are polls, but at the end of the day, November 3rd is November 3rd. And let's see who in the ballot box decides to who puts what. You know what I'm saying? But my opinion is that if Joe Biden has anywhere between 210 and 225 electoral votes by 10 p.m., he's winning the election because California is going to go blue 11 o'clock, and California alone will put him over the top. You know what I'm saying? And then as well as Oregon and Washington State. So those are the clues to look at early on. Look at Georgia. Look at the because what I was saying too to people like who especially Democrats who are nervous is that you want to hope that Joe Biden runs a similar electoral wave that Obama did in 2008 because you don't want Florida to be the last state to wait for. If Joe Biden could cross 270 before Florida is even decided, you feel good. And when Obama won it in 2008, he already crossed 270 before Florida was even called for him. So that's a big deal. But it also means that the Rust Belt states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan have also went to Biden as well. That's the whole thing. And by the way, Donald Trump, there's no path in winning this election without Florida. Bottom line. I can see Trump winning Florida, I'll be honest with you. But there's no path in winning the election without it. Pretty much. Joe Biden could win the election without Florida as long as he holds serve in the Rust Belt. States that Hillary Clinton lost that now he's looking to gain back and he's leading pretty comfortably in some of those states like Wisconsin and Michigan. Mostly Michigan, really. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Social media. Gotta tell you, I think about taking a break from social media after the election. Just cause. Just over it. But I tell you what, though, in terms of social media, while I love Facebook because it's personal and my family's there and close friends I could communicate and do that kind of stuff, I really enjoy Twitter and Instagram over Facebook. And the reason why I say that is because I feel like on Twitter, I can be myself and a little more. Like most people on Twitter, like people I do know there obviously personally, but there's most people that follow me. They don't. I don't know personally, so I feel like I can just say what the fuck I want and feel like I'm not like oh I gotta hold back because this fan member like this comment I'm gonna make or post I'm gonna make. On Twitter, I don't feel that way. I just say what the hell I want on Twitter and that's it and keep moving. No, obviously I'm not a dickhead about it. I'm not gonna sit there and just like curse people out just because I want to, but I feel more secure what I'm going to say when I'm on Twitter as opposed to Facebook. Instagram is cool too because Instagram is even more insulated because it's mostly pictures and stuff, and it's more insulated to that. It's not. I don't feel like I have to be political and all this stuff on Instagram. On Twitter, I am that way, and I feel like I can say what I want to say without feeling like I'm have to hold back. Facebook, I feel like I have to restrict myself and hold things back because people get offended, especially people in my family, dude. That's the worst thing. People in my family get fucking they get offended by some things I say, even in sports. It's ridiculous. So, but I think after the election, I'm going to take a little bit of a hiatus from, from social media. At least, definitely tamper down. It's funny because I did one of these things last year. Remember last summer when I took a 3-month or 4-month break from Facebook, I kept Twitter and I kept Instagram because I feel like with Twitter, I don't feel like I have to be there all the time. I can always pull back and not have to feel like I have to be there. I could take a few days from Twitter and feel okay. Instagram is a little more addicting, but again, it's more pictures and you show your friends and family, the kids and all that crap. So I see my sons and see the fan pictures and all that, but I don't feel like I have to be too interpersonal. Whereas Facebook, you feel like you have to. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I'm thinking about taking another hiatus after the election. We'll see. And by the way, it's not because of the election. I actually want to be there during the election to see people's reaction to the results. I like it. So, last thing here: the Dodgers win the World Series. In 6 games over Tampa. congrats to a lot of my friends, especially Mark Francois, D. Will, Dara Wilson, folks come on this podcast, Jordan Bruscarini, Jabari Davis, guys, Jameson Welsh, folks that come on the podcast. Oh, of course, I can't forget Steve Borstein. All loyal Dodger fans. I mean, look, it is what it is, man. I'm a Met fan. I hate the Dodgers. I've hated Dodgers since fucking 1988. Okay, people say, "Oh, I hate the Dodgers so much." Well, dude, if you watch baseball, Mets Dodgers were a pretty bitter rivalry back in the late '80s, and it's embedded into me. It's like me and the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, same thing. Just can't stand them. But they won the World Series. Didn't see any of the games. In fact, I don't think I watched any baseball past August. Honestly. And for a number of reasons. And one, basketball was going on for starters. You had the NBA season, playoffs. Okay, for starters. So, and right away that's my number one priority. You got football on. That crossed it. So, a lot of things that I would have taken to. And for the record, I love baseball, but if it's not the number one priority, it's gonna get lost in the wayside. And it's election year. You know how I am every 4 years. Election. I'm watching the debates. I'm watching the footage. I'm watching the news on the election. What's going on? The news and notes. So that hurt me really with the baseball stuff this year. It was cool though having a short year. I'm not gonna lie to you. I gotta give them credit because they came out the gate really bad with the COVID infections and stuff, and having to threaten to stop the season at one point a couple weeks in. But I gotta tell you, and I praise the NBA for this, for doing a great job. And sorry, I got a text from my wife. I praise them for this, for the NBA doing a great job. Baseball got their shit together. After the threat of shutting down the season, they got their shit together. And they completed the year, they bubbled the playoffs, and there you go. Although this whole thing with Justin Turner, getting announced that he had COVID in the middle of the game yesterday, that's fucking crazy shit. I don't know how it's gonna play out. We'll see. There's an investigation going on starting now, today. I don't know. Anyway, so I got again, I'm not a Dodger fan, but congrats to the Dodgers. Overkill. Lakers win the title against my Miami Heat. What's supposed to happen because the Heat weren't supposed to be there in the first place. So whatever. I can live with LeBron in the fourth ring. That's fine. But to have that and then 2 weeks later the freaking Dodgers win the World Series too on top of that, oh jeez, man. Overkill. So anyway, that's the podcast. Get at me on Twitter at EJChristian7. Earnestly.net is the website. The newsletter, hopefully I'll start this week. I see saying that. Maybe next week. I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's at earnestlyspeaking.substack.com. Until then, I guess, we'll talk soon. Later.